Every time you say you want to get through this fast, you extend it by about 45 minutes. we're just at 26 minutes. We haven't even gotten through the title of the show yet. Welcome to Damn It, Jim, the podcast. We're continuing the Star Trek discussion as we tackle the new series, Strange New Worlds. My name is Dana Smith, and I'm your navigator on this adventure. And with me, as always, our Commodore of Comedy, Dan Calzaretta. Good evening, Dan.
Dana, how are you doing?
Pretty spiffy. Can't complain.
Sounds like you want to, maybe.
Spiffy is not a word that people use much anymore, I don't think.
No, they don't. That's a good word, though. I like spiffy.
Yeah, me too.
You know the other word I like? It's kind of related. Nifty. That's nifty.
Nifty. Wow, that's one you really don't hear anymore. I was in a meeting once at work when there's a bunch of younger people, and I said, wow, that's cool. And somebody looked at me and said, you came out of the 60s, didn't you?
Yeah, as a toddler. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you fire them?
Well, then the next thing I said, well, I could have said groovy, so.
That's more of a 70s, early 70s, don't you think?
Yeah.
Dana, I'm no entomologist. Wait, is it which is the word? There's one that's bugs and there's one that's words, but they sound really close to each other.
Yeah, I don't know which one's which anymore.
I'm going to go with entomologist is words. That's what I'm going to go with. And let's see.
What the Googler says?
Entomology is, nope, shit, I got it wrong. Entomology is the study of bugs.
Yeah, I knew that.
So, okay, so there's etymology, Dana, and entomology.
Oh,
okay.
Etymology is words?
Entomology is bugs.
Yes.
And etymology is words. I guess the way you can remember that is entomology kind of sounds like entomology. Maybe that's the way you can remember it. I'm not going to remember it 5 minutes from now, Dana. It doesn't matter.
Remember what?
Huh? Is this about Star Trek or bugs?
Yeah. Welcome to the Damn It Jim Bug Hour.
God, that would be good. You know, bugs are kind of cool, though. Don't you think?
I hate bugs.
You don't like any bugs? Like nothing?
Ladybugs, I guess.
Yeah, they're actually called ladybird beetles.
Yeah, bugs are bugs. There's a reason why they got a crappy name.
What would you say, though, Dana, is your favorite bug? Of any bug, even if it's not technically a bug, what would you say your favorite bug is and your worst bug is?
I don't like those big black beetles.
Dung beetles?
Yeah, don't like those.
Yeah, they're horrible, yeah.
Yeah, and the ladybird bugs, or whatever you called them, are probably my favorites.
You like those, okay.
Well, butterfly's a bug, right?
Sure. For the purposes of this conversation.
I like butterflies.
Yeah, I do like butterflies too, yeah.
But I don't like moths.
No, who would? Really?
Yeah.
Moths are nocturnal. Butterflies are not. Just throw that out there. See, I used to study bugs as a previous profession. I don't know if I ever told you that. I was a bugologist. I think that's a real thing.
Yeah, I think they're called an entomologist, Dan. So 5 minutes into the show, we haven't discussed Star Trek at all, but...
You didn't ask me what my favorite and least favorite bugs are.
Dan, I just had a thought.
Yeah?
What's your favorite bug?
Can I start with the least favorite?
Dan, what's your least favorite bug?
Cockroaches. Hate them.
Oh, man.
They're impossible to kill. Like, I've read that there could be a nuclear war and they'll survive.
Yeah, they'd be about the only thing that survive.
Yeah.
What about your favorite bug, Dan?
Funny you should ask that, Dana. It's a good question. Yeah. I really, really like katydids.
Okay.
You act like you never heard of them.
Well, it's funny. Whenever I hear the word katydid, I think of a restaurant in Illinois.
Was it called katydids?
It was called the katydid.
Who did Katy do?
It was actually had another name, but it was a smorgasbord.
Oh, okay. Well, katydids, Dana, they're actually pretty unique for their songs and their long antennae. They're also known as bush crickets or long-horned grasshoppers.
Wow.
Yeah, before getting into Star Trek, I was into bugs, you see.
You're starting to bug me, so it's...
One more thing, Dana. There's a true katydid, a fork-tailed katydid, and an angular-winged katydid. Now, the angular-winged is specifically interesting because that species lays eggs in 2 overlapping rows on twigs and leaves.
Well, I can actually hear people turning the podcast off now.
A couple of people are like, man, I'm really into bugs. Wow, these guys are great. I have to do a project on katydids, and this guy just got me an A.
Once again, the Damn It Jim University is open for business. So
I tell you, we need to charge people for this, Dana. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question for you before we get into whatever it is we're doing.
Okay, is it a bug-related question?
No.
Ah, okay.
Something that bugged me, though.
Oh, okay. Well, related.
So Friday, we had a big swing in temperature here. We went from 40 some degrees the day before down to 17 degrees for a high the next day.
Wow.
And it was cold all weekend here. I went to the store at lunchtime.
Okay.
It was like the pandemic started again. People were just lined up to get mostly crappy food.
Huh.
I see people wheeling carts out that are stacked taller than them with bags of Doritos and dip and stuff. And it's like,
wow.
Yeah, okay, there's the playoff games this weekend, but...
Yeah, that was my first thought. Maybe it was football.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody was at the store. It was crazy. It's amazing. I mean, it's 2-3 cold days.
Yeah.
If you don't have enough food to get you through 3 days in your house already, then why make it miserable for... And the whole town had to do that.
What about toilet paper?
Yep, there was a lot of that missing.
Wow.
I was just curious if you'd seen anything like that.
No, we get our toilet paper online from... It's called Who Gives a Crap. Have you heard of this?
No.
Yeah, it's made out of bamboo.
Wow.
Yeah, it leaves splinters, but you got to get used to that. After a couple of weeks, you kind of get used to it. But yeah, it's called Who Gives a Crap. Yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's bamboo, so it's from a really endangered forest apparently. So there's only a limited number of rolls that you can get out of it. But man, it is like wiping your ass on a pillow, Dana. It's great.
Speaking of which, we have sheets that are made out of bamboo. I hope they weren't made from the toilet paper that you buy.
The bamboo is obviously not an endangered species. Let's just make that clear. It is not. It's very, ecologically friendly.
Yeah, that's why it's becoming so popular, is because it actually grows faster than regular trees.
But they do take the recycled bamboo toilet paper that you've used, and they make sheets out of it. So you are actually sleeping. Dana, you're sleeping on shit sheets. That's what you're sleeping on.
Well, it's terribly soft. I mean, I just... So let's get into the listener comments.
Yeah.
Once again, on Facebook, lots of likes. A lot of people shared our posts that we put out.
Now, did they share it, Dana, with the comment, "Do not listen to these guys"?
I'm assuming it's a good thing.
Has to be, yeah.
We've been talking about doing something as a giveaway for our listeners. So we had a conversation today with one of the top graphic designers in the world regarding something to send out to the fan base.
I like it.
As we mentioned last week, we're considering doing a Damn It Jim bumper sticker, and she came up with the idea of a Damn It Jim laptop sticker.
Ooh, I like that. That laptop stickers are hot with the kids, Dana.
Yeah, that's what we want, is kids listening to us.
I don't mean like little kids. I'm talking like college age kids, Dana.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can you imagine if we were hot with the college age crowd? Oh, that'd be great. We could go down to Fort Lauderdale and we'd have our own little DJ booth,
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Be there next to Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg's older than we are, I got the feeling.
Yeah, but he is everywhere.
He is, yeah.
I think they've cloned him.
I would like to meet him. I think it would be interesting,
Would think so, too.
Yeah. I bet he's a Star Trek fan. I really think he would be. Don't you think?
You're getting me off the subject here.
Sorry.
So this is what we're working on. By next week, I hope we have some more clarity on this.
Okay.
If anyone has an idea or would like to vote on which is best, a bumper sticker or a laptop/notebook sticker, please let us know.
Do you think the Enterprise has bumper stickers?
I think that's against Federation laws.
Oh, that's too bad. It'd be cool if they had a sticker.
I visited Wrigley's Pleasure Planet and all I got was this T-shirt or something.
I break for Klingons. How's my warp driving? Call 1-800-EAT-KIRK.
So, Dan, do you have any listener comments you want to share?
I do, Dana. We got another YouTube comment from C. Slumbarsky, and it was on the episode Children of the Comet, and he said, "Tune in next week for the continuing adventures of Captain Pock and Mr. Spike."
Is this you, or is this you putting
This is not me. This is not me. This is a real person. They go on to say, "Menu for the next captain's table. Rack of lamb chop." Dana, we also heard from Roxy Ray on the Damn It Jim hotline. Here is what Roxy had to say.
I have to say this was probably one of my favorite podcast episodes. I laughed, snorted the entire hour. Y'all had me in stitches. Oxygen became an issue. And I got to thinking, if you gave your loyal listeners ranks and things like that, I believe mine would probably be chief pain in the behind. Thank you for giving me laughter for an hour. I appreciate it. So y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Well, we really appreciate the phone message, Roxy. And Roxy, I can't imagine anybody calling you a pain in the behind. Yeah, you are very sweet, and we really appreciate the call and the support you've given us. So glad we can make you laugh.
Yeah, thank you, Roxy.
On with this episode, the Ghosts of Illyria.
Ooh, what a ghost sounds like?
Sound a little bit like Curly from the Three Stooges.
Wise guys, yeah.
Every time you say you want to get through this fast, you extend it by about 45 minutes. we're just at 26 minutes. We haven't even gotten through the title of the show yet.
Can you imagine if one of the Three Stooges or all three, showed up in an episode of Star Trek? That would be great. Dana, I'm totally old school with the Three Stooges. It's Moe, Curly, and Larry. Not Curly Joe.
What about Shemp?
No. God, no. Hated Shemp. No. No. How about you?
Moe, Larry, and Curly, definitely. I can put up with some Shemp. If it's like I watch 2 or 3 episodes in a row with Shemp, then he starts getting on my nerves.
Yeah, I'd agree with you with that, yeah. I mean, I don't hate him as much as Curly Joe. Curly Joe, I'd have to turn it off.
Yeah.
So what's this episode? The Ghosts of Curly Joe? What the hell is it again?
So we start out with heavy, dark clouds over a planet. So it turns out this was an ion storm.
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the only real, explanation, Dana.
So we get the first officer's log. The Enterprise has arrived at Hedimit 9. The planet is the site of an abandoned Illyrian colony. Illyrians are a humanoid species known for modifying their genes to enhance their capabilities and levels of function.
No. We always have people wanting to modify genes.
Yeah.
But not corduroys.
That's because by the 23rd century or 22nd century, whatever it is, they're not wearing corduroys anymore. However, because genetic modification is forbidden in the Federation, Illyrians have always been outcasts. Our presence here is part of a standing mission to discover what happened to them. Unfortunately, research time on the surface is limited, as the planet is regularly swept by ion storms, one of which is fast approaching. They decide they need to get everyone back to the ship. So Pike tries to communicate with Spock, but due to the ion storm, can't get through. So Pike goes looking for him, and he tells number 1 to get everyone back to the ship. Pike finds Spock. Spock says he's found some journals that may be relevant, and Pike tells them they have to hurry. So they get to the beam out spot, and the transporter can't pull them out. Back on the Enterprise, Una gets everyone ready and says they'll get the captain and Spock as soon as the storm passes. So then we go down a corridor and we see Ortegas walking along. She's kind of rubbing her neck and looks a little bit irritated. And then she sees this Ensign Lance, who is looking into a light fixture. You know, they got the lights on the walls.
The funny thing is Ensign Lance had no pants.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Dr. Seuss rhyme.
So yeah, and he's like, when she walks up, he's like throwing his coat on the floor, and
right.
He's getting closer to this light, and he says, "It's too dark in here." And then he bashes his head through the glass.
I thought he was going to actually decapitate himself. That's what I thought.
See, I was thinking it was an outdoor window. So I just thought he'd get sucked out into space or something, you know.
Yeah, that would have been something.
So Ortegas goes running to him and calls for medical emergency. Then in number 1 quarters, she's sitting next to the light, and she seems to be studying the light. Suddenly, she seems affected, and she sits back and tears at the collar of her tunic. But she stands, and her hands are like glowing red. And then, like, her neck turns kind of red and looks like molten lava kind of a thing. She calls Mabenga and asks how the landing party is doing. And he says he has several of them in sickbay.
I love Mabinga, Dana. I think this is going to be one of my favorite characters.
Oh, yeah, already there.
Yeah.
So he wants her to come down so he can check her out.
You are a bastard. You are trying to get me to say stuff, Dana. I'm not going to do it.
In sickbay, Mabenga explains to Una that half of them, the landing party that is, have burned or shocked themselves, all on sources of illumination, and yet the light's the only thing that seems to calm them down. He says so much so they're willing to hurt themselves to get to it.
Yeah, it was weird.
Then he says he ran a viral and bacteria scan, but found nothing abnormal. Mabenga goes on to say he wants to check her blood just to be sure. So next we see Una walking with Hemmer, and he's saying the biofilters would have caught any contamination during transport. If the filters don't recognize something, they filter it out. So it'd be like if you get like a bug on you that's like known only this planet and it's not in the system.
Yeah.
That keeps you from turning into the fly.
Well, I think what happens is if it's like on your arm, it just filters out your arm. So you show up there and you just don't have an arm. I think that's what they mean.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Yeah, talk about people being resistant to beam down to anything. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So we go back to Una's quarters, and she asks the computer to show everything on Illyrian genetic modifications specifically related to disease control. So Singh comes in, and Una explains about the issues with the landing party and to be aware of unusual behavior. And so they talk about genetic modification and why it's banned thanks to eugenic wars. Una says, I imagine you know all about that period in history. Noonien Singh kind of rubs her neck and says, well, you don't grow up with a bioengineered mass murderer as your ancestor and not develop a thick skin. La-Anne starts acting funny, and then she goes towards the desk lamp and says, is this the only light you have in here? Then she turns the desk lamp toward her face, and Una calls for Mabenga.
So we know somehow she's been impacted by this, whatever, virus or whatever. And we now know that Khan has to be a distant ancestor of hers, right?
At least like a great-grandfather or something? Great-granduncle?
Right, because he would have been in the 1990s. Isn't that when this was supposed to have happened?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wasn't it at the end of the 1990s when the eugenic wars happened?
Yeah.
Next thing we see is Singh in sickbay, and Una says she's not part of the landing party. So Mabenga recommends a full lockdown. On the planet, Pike is pacing around while Spock is reading from these journals, and Spock says it seems this particular group of Illyrians wanted to join the Federation. The group was attempting to reverse its DNA modifications to gain entry.
You know the thing that I loved about this scene, Dana, though? The leather jackets. Those were cool-ass leather jackets they were wearing, Dana.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch, that when they're on a away mission, like they wear something like that.
I'd love to have one of those.
Maybe one of our listeners will make you one. So next, Pike is watching the storm outside. He asks, any ideas what happened to the colony? And Spock says he's only halfway through the document. Pike suggests he skips to the end to find out how it ends.
Yeah, why? Just go to the end. Yeah, just go to the freaking end, Spock. Some people actually go and read the end of a book before they start the book. I think that's just wrong, Dana. Wrong.
I've met people that do that, and I ban them from my friendship, yeah.
Yeah, I can never do that. That's what. Why? Why would you do that?
And I remember somebody telling me, I started reading this book, and it was like really tense and stuff, and so I just went to the back to the end to see how it ended. And I was kind of like, what's the point?
Why buy the book? Just go to the bookstore or the library. Just look at the last page. There you go. You read the book.
Yeah.
Although in some of these episodes, Dana, I'd really like to just go to the end because some of them drag out and, they just drag on. And I was like, oh, my God, can't I just go to the end? Which I could. I could just fast forward to the end.
It would make the podcast a lot shorter.
Yeah, and probably better because I wouldn't be rambling about a whole bunch of shit,
Meanwhile, the storm rages on outside, and they hear like screams, like high-pitched kind of screams.
Like a horror movie almost, you know?
So Pike stares out the window and sees 3 apparitions flying through the storm towards the building. So back on the Enterprise, Uhura wakes up in her sleep pod, and 2 of her roommates are standing next to this bright light source, soaking up the rays. And it's kind of weird because they're like, I don't want to say dancing, but kind of moving in front of it.
Right.
One guy, I think, was trying to have sex with the light. I'm not sure, but it was, it just looked really odd.
He's trying to screw in the light bulb.
Uhura says, and simulation, and stimulation. And, and they turn and yell at her for doing that. And one of the guys even says, we need the light. So, there's lots of wackiness going on.
And it all has to do with light.
Yeah, which is not something you would think of as being a problem. Back on the planet, they think the entities have gone, but then they look back at the open door and see these light creatures, I don't know what else to call them, trying to enter the room. And it's kind of like they got tentacles and stuff. They're kind of like reaching in, and they manage to get the door closed. But then they just hear this banging on the door. Pike says, yeah, he goes, just like my old dorm mate, Kirk, who has always heard him banging on a door too. But listen.
Well, he's banging on something. I'm not sure it was the door.
Yeah, usually against the door, against the wall, and, on the ceiling, whatever. So on the Enterprise, Una says, I ran an electromagnetic scan on the ship around infected crew members. Light waves carry additional energy. M'Benga says the contagion travels on light.
That whole part, Dana, was like a little far-fetched to me.
I thought it was kind of a cool concept. It's like bed bugs. If you just like pull back the sheet and look for bed bugs, they're like really hard to see.
Okay.
But if you have a light source, like a blue light source or something, they're easier to see.
Really? I don't want to see them. I don't want to know.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
Because they're probably in every hotel, I would guess.
Yeah, that's why sometimes you go into hotel rooms and they're like really hot in the hotel room. And it's because they're trying to kill bed bugs.
Really?
Because bed bugs don't like heat, and so they get kind of driven out.
Oh, man. Now I'm going to worry about every hotel room I go into, and I'm like, oh, it feels a little hot in here to me. I did not know that.
Heat's one of the ways to get them out.
All right, thanks.
That's why they find your clothes have bed bugs. You're supposed to throw them in the dryer.
I would just burn them. That's what I would do. I just burn them.
So Chapel says it's only a matter of time before we're all infected. Chapel says we have a sickbay full of light addicts. And then Una just says, sedate all of them. M'Benga agrees. He goes, man, my arm's going to get tired punching these people, but, we got to do what we got to do.
I mean, they got to Cosby everyone on the ship. I mean, that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, once again, paging Dr. Cosby.
Exactly.
And so Una says she's going to the transporter room. So she gets to the transporter room, and there's a glowing glob of energy on the transporter pad. And Hemmer is at the transporter controls, and she asks what he's doing, and he says he's performing a miracle. So Una asks, what is it? And Hemmer replies, an iron sulfur alloy. She asks, you're transporting a piece of the planet's core? And Hemmer says, mantle to be precise. I want to feel the radiance on my skin. And she says it will kill you.
Yeah, because he's got really white skin, Dana. That guy definitely needs sunscreen.
And then he comes around the controls and goes towards the transporter pad. She pulls the phaser and yells at him, and when he doesn't stop, she fires, hitting him in the back. And then she runs to the controls and sends the material back to the planet. So she goes over to him and kind of looks down at him, and then she picks him up and throws him over her shoulder.
Like he's nothing.
Yeah.
There's definitely something going on there.
So the storm continues to rage on the planet. Then all of a sudden the door breaks open and the creatures come through, and then the window cracks that they've been looking out, and then it breaks and Pike and Spock hit the floor, and the creatures kind of like circle around them, and we realize that they're protecting them. So we get back to sickbay, where Una is carrying Hemmer over her shoulder into the room, and Chapel asks, how the hell are you carrying him? So M'Benga walks up and says Hemmer's vitamin D levels are dropping, and Una says, did you find anything that could help synthesize a cure in the blood sample you took from me? She says, I'm immune. I've already come down with it, and my immune system did what it was bioengineered to do. I'm an Illyrian.
Okay, that was a shock.
So they go into a room, and M'Benga is reaching for the light, and she pulls him away, and he goes and lies down on what looks like a dentist chair. They get into this discussion about prejudices and how Starfleet is right about a lot of things, but not all things, and he tells her to sedate him. And she's like, but I'm not done telling you about prejudices. And he goes, no, just please sedate me.
Just put me out, for crying out loud.
He goes, I'm babbling, you're babbling. He goes, oh my God. He goes, this show could go on forever.
And I felt like being sedated at that point, too.
So she does. She sedates him. As the computer calls out a warning, warp core containment field has been deactivated.
Something bad's going on.
So again, Una goes running off. Then we see Singh standing at a control panel facing the warp core as Una enters engineering and tells her to move away from the panel.
Dana, here's my question, though. Do you not think that they would have some safety system that would not allow someone to fucking breach the warp core or whatever she's trying to do? You know what I mean?
Una comes up and pushes Singh away, and then they start fighting. Una pins Singh to the floor and says, it's me, I'm your friend. And Singh argues, you lie to me every day for years. What kind of friend is that? Well, Una figures out how to stop this whole discussion. She just smacks her really hard and knocks her out.
Oh, yeah, she smacked her, yeah.
It was a total Mabinga.
Yeah, it was like a super Mabinga, you know?
So just then the computer says, warp core breach is imminent.
Well, it's been imminent for like the last 10 minutes, Dana.
So we go back to the planet as the storm is subsiding. Pike hails the ship but gets no response because everybody's asleep.
They're just sleeping on the job.
Pike suggests they go outside and then asks Spock why the plasma creatures were able to protect him, but they didn't protect the colonists. And Spock says there's a good chance they are the colonists.
See, as soon as he said that, I said it right with him, Dana.
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard to figure that part out.
So in sickbay, Una wakes up Mbenga and explains, we've got an antidote. And she tells him about Singh and the warp core. And she says, as I was stopping her, she got a bad dose of radiation, and so did I. She says, apparently my body cured both of us before I re-engaged the field.
What? Dana, see, again, this makes no sense to me.
Well, she's Illyrian, and she's been bioengineered to fight disease.
Yeah, okay, good for her.
And the radiation's going through her. She passes that on to Singh and saves them both.
Yeah, no. No, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy that, the whole thing.
I went, that's kind of a leap. Later still, in Pike's quarters, Una is confessing to Pike that she's an Illyrian. She says she committed a Federation offense and therefore she is resigning her commission. And Pike just says no. And then he says she's the best officer in the fleet. And she says, you can be in trouble too. And he says, I don't care.
I actually got the feeling, Dana, that he probably knew something about her. You know, maybe not exactly, but that's the feeling I got from this scene.
And she asks, what do we do when Starfleet finds out? Pike kind of chuckles and says, you let me worry about Starfleet. In sickbay, Una says it was the medical transporter that was the problem.
They could have ended the episode right here. It would have been fine with me. Like probably 20 minutes ago would have been fine. But they got to go for the real kind of syrupy freaking thing that you're about to explain. And it pissed me off. I'm just going to tell you before you say it. Okay, go ahead and tell everyone right now what pissed me off, Dana.
She says, you're keeping something in the buffer.
I was like, yeah, I got something in my buffer. It's right here. Oh, that buffer. Okay.
Says something you need to preserve, even if it killed everyone else on the ship. And she asks, what are you keeping in there? He says, not what, who, or Kia, my daughter.
No, Dana, no, come on.
He's getting emotional. And he says, a year ago, she was diagnosed with this kind of leukemia. He says, in the transporter buffer, she never ages. He says, I cannot help her. And he says, we travel light years and hours, and somehow out there is a planet that has the discovery I need. And he asks for more time to spend with his daughter before she dies, and Una says no. Then she adds, I'll provide a dedicated power source direct from the warp core. And she goes to leave and says, I look forward to meeting her one day. She leaves, and the doctor looks kind of relieved. He's got a tear streaking down his face.
That should be a count, Dana, because I think in the first 3 episodes, we've already seen people cry in every freaking episode.
Really?
I think so, which we probably would not have seen in the entire original series.
Then we go back to sickbay, and Mbenga shutters the windows and brings his daughter out of the buffer. She asks if it's story time again, and she says they've read this story 100 times.
And he slaps her, he just Mbengas her, and shut up, I just brought you back out of the buffer.
Mabenga is reading the story to his daughter.
Still goes on, Dan. Still goes on. Oh, my God.
We see the Enterprise moving through space as the story provides a happy ending. And Dan, that's how this episode ends.
So, Dana, you have something to share about one of the characters in this episode.
Yeah, Dan. Dr. Mabenga is played by Babs Olosanamkin. He's a Nigerian-American actor who has been working since 2004. He's appeared in a lot of TV shows from Law & Order SVU to Blue Bloods, Gotham, Black Mirror, and even I think it was like a remake of Roots. He shows up in the first two Dune movies and the film The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. He's earned a competitive third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Wow.
And he has won numerous Pan American competitions, earning 2 gold medals.
Amazing. I did not know that.
He's fluent in English, French, Yoruba, and Portuguese. That's all I have about him, Dan. Do you have any themes or dilemmas about this episode you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, Dana, I think one of the dilemmas that several of the characters face during this episode is what secrets do we keep and do they help us or hurt us? So, for example, Una is Illyrian. She's hiding that from everybody. It is a secret that could hurt her, but it ends up actually helping the ship and helping people on the ship survive. And then Mabinga, he has a secret trying to keep his daughter alive in the buffer. That could have potentially hurt the ship, but yet it was to keep his daughter alive. So we probably all have secrets that, to one extent or another could be little secrets or big secrets, but they have unintended consequences. And so that's kind of what I saw as the dilemma in this episode. How about for you?
Dan, I might be reaching a little bit, but I was thinking it's kind of like to thine own self be true. You have to be who you are. You also need to appreciate who you are as others appreciate you and be honest with your friends. I think that's a big part of it is trusting that your friends are going to not turn on you for being honest. And that's a hard thing. Okay, Dan, let's move on to the best and worst. What do you have for best?
Well, Mabinga gets a big role in this episode, and I really look forward to seeing more of him and finding out more of his story, Dana. How about a best for you?
The word ghosts has multiple meanings in this episode. Singh is haunted. Una is haunted. Everybody seems to be haunted in this episode, something. And so I really liked that there was more than just the simple meaning of ghosts. You got another one for us, Dan?
Dana, those leather jackets that they wore on the landing party, oh my God, those are so cool. So I Googled it and looked up, you can actually buy these jackets anywhere between about $100 and $150, $60. Man, those things are sharp. I would definitely wear one, Dana. And if any of our fans want to donate to the Damn It Jim Buy Dan a Leather Jacket Fund, I think that would be fantastic. You and I would look great in those.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, going out to a bar, people would not sit anywhere near us. They're like, what are those two goobers? How about another best part for you?
The fight with Una and Singh. One, we get another fight, something I wasn't expecting. You get to see, it was kind of like Spock fighting Kirk. Spock was so much stronger. But you don't realize just how strong Una is until she's like throwing her around, and when she kicks her, she goes flying and stuff. So I thought that was it was well done. Dan, what about a worst part for you?
I thought the cure for the disease that was explained in like 15 seconds was far-fetched. I'm glad they didn't belabor the point, Dana, so I'm happy for that. But it also seemed like a lame way to just solve this crisis in a very short period of time. How about a worst part for you?
Kind of like using the transporter, and we touched on this. Everyone knows how to blow up the warp core and can access the controls to do that. Yeah, that bothered me. Do you have another worst part?
I do. It's hard for someone like me who has not seen any of Discovery to understand the background of the relationship between Una and Singh. And I guess I could go back and, watch the episodes that would kind of explain more of that. But it seems like maybe they need to do a better job in this series of giving us just a little bit more background.
Yeah, Singh isn't in any of the Discovery.
Well, then I think they've done a horrible job at saying that they've got a background together, because apparently Una saves her from the Gorn or something.
Kinda, yeah.
Well, but see, they need to explain this. How about another worst part for you?
Una carrying Hemmer down the hall when she's doing that. It was obviously like a dummy they had over her shoulder, and it looked like she had like a big towel, like a beach towel over her shoulder. But when she's walking down the hall, it just completely pulled me out because I was like, what'd she do? Drop him and put a towel over her shoulder? It's like, so didn't look real.
Well, Dana, how about one more worst part for you?
Dan, I thought this would be yours. No crew members die.
Well, maybe I've just gotten used to it at this point.
We're getting to the point we need to have a crew member die.
Yeah.
So, Dan, one of my favorite parts of this, what do you think Kirk would have done?
Dana, I think if someone told Kirk a secret that would get them kicked out of Starfleet, especially, let's say, if it was Spock, he would do exactly what Pike did. I think he would protect that person at all costs. How about you?
Well, first, if Kirk had to stay on the planet with just Spock, I think he would have asked for a yeoman to stay back with him. And then I think if he had been in the same situation, kind of like you, I think he would have supported them, but I think he first would have admonished them.
Well, Dana, let's move on to the counts. How about the talking too much count?
You're probably going to disagree with me, but I don't have any this week.
I didn't have any either.
Okay, so we are still at 4.
And the dead crewman count?
Nothing this week, so we're still at a half.
I'm worried. I'm really worried, Dana. We better get some dead crewmen, or I'm going to be really upset. How about the bare-chested characters or ripped shirt count?
I had that there was none, but then I remembered that Una rips her top.
Well, I think so too. So that's a ripped shirt, so that's 1. And then, Dana, it went by pretty quickly, but when they were in sickbay, there was a guy without a shirt, and there was a woman wearing only like a sports bra. I think that counts as 2 more.
Wow. I didn't notice those, but I'll go with you.
Yeah, so we should have a total of 5?
Yeah.
All right. Then, Dana, how about trampling on TOS concepts?
I really couldn't think of anything, Dan. I thought they're still following pretty well along with the ideas that were presented in TOS.
Yep, I totally agree. So none this week. We are at 1 still. How about the violation of the Prime Directive?
Don't have any this week. I mean, unless you count going down to the planet and upsetting the ghosts. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have any this week either, Dana.
So we're still at 1.
How about the Supreme Being count?
Closest thing we had was Una, but I don't think that's exactly what we're looking for. So I'm saying we're still at 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. How about fights for this week?
We got one, Dan, between Una and Singh, so now we were at 2.
All right. Yeah, that was a pretty good fight. I would say that was pretty old school, pretty true to the original series, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I just kind of wish that when she went to knock out Singh, finally she did a karate chop instead of a punch to the face.
I hope we get some karate chops in this. I mean, it sounds like several of the actors have martial arts backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're learning about Mbinga today, and we learned about someone else last week.
Ortegas.
All right, how about taking over the Enterprise count?
No one this week, Dan, so we're still at 0.
All right, Dana. Well, hey, I know that I kind of make fun of stuff in these episodes, but I really like, so far, Strange New Worlds. First season, first 3 episodes. Like, I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but it's really good. How about for you?
I agree with you, Dan. And there's a lot to digest in this episode. Many characters are involved, from Una to Pike, Spock, Noonien Singh, and Hemmer, Mbinga, Chapel, and Kyle. I mean, everybody gets like a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
And it all flows pretty well, and everyone has a kind of a quote-unquote moment where they learn something or find acceptance. I thought that was kind of a neat thing. I think that we haven't seen the last of the backstory of Una Chin Riley. I think there's going to be a lot more that kind of comes out of this. The show is focusing on friendships and individual development, which works well for us to get to know the characters. A lot of it's about the relationships, which is really true to the original series. No, you don't feel this way with the whole thing with Mbinga's child. It was kind of heart-wrenching. Something I didn't expect. Dan, what do we got next week?
Dana, next week, episode 4 is Memento Mori.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that, Dan. As always, Dan, it's great to get together with you and talk about Star Trek. And once again, thanks for everybody who writes in and or calls. And until we meet again, live long and prosper.
Thanks once again for listening to Damn It Jim, the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please send us an email at dammitjimpodcast@gmail.com or join the discussion on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or X. You can also call the Damn It Jim hotline at 509-676-6298. Enjoy the rest of your week, and as always, remember to live long and prosper.
This has been a Ramble Jar production.